Today is the 7th of August. We're starting with chapter 5, the next session, that is 3 doers. We're done with Stay in the World, where Krishna describes, there's a very clear-cut question from Arjun. What is better, work in renunciation or work in Krishna consciousness? Renunciation in knowledge or work in Krishna consciousness? So Krishna very clearly in 5.2 says that both are good. Which is better? Work in Krishna consciousness, work in devotional service is definitely better than renunciation. And then we threw the whole table and then we saw how it is better. We had so many points in that, correct? And a few of them being that there's a risk of falling in renunciation, and it's incomplete or artificial renunciation. It includes only detachment from matter, whereas the devotional service is attachment to Krishna, which automatically brings about detachment from matter. And then comes the question, then he between 5.7 to 5.12 he explained how to practice Nishkam Karma Yoga. He gave 3 symptoms: Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma and Jitendriya. These 3 types, they are like the ideals. Number 1, somebody with a purified intelligence. The soul has a purified intelligence, one who is self-controlled and one who has conquered his senses. As and when a person gets closer or detached from matter, attached to Krishna, these are the symptoms of such a person. Then in 5.7 and 5.8, Krishna describes, that tongue twister shloka that we had, Jigran, Spishan and all that, remember? That is, a person is doing all normal things that anybody else would do, but he is clearly aloof from his material body. He knows that only the material body is acting and that I am aloof from them. 5.10, Krishna says that without work attachment, work without attachment and then surrender all the results to Krishna. And this way you can keep the sinful reactions at bay. Yeah, I'm going a little fast because I'm just revising. So if somebody is detached from work because he knows that he is spirit soul and not this body, what is the purpose of his work? What's his motivation? That's 5.11. Do you remember? Kaivalya? Purification. Purification or Kaivalya is the motivation. 5.12, Krishna summarizes the entire section, saying that one must be detached from the fruits and his senses should be controlled. With such, and the motivation of purification, he should do work with knowledge, not renunciation. Okay? Then 5.13 to 5.16, did we read all the shlokas?
Yes.
We read all the shlokas. So we start with 5.13. Just quickly write down a few things on the board. So this question, this basically 5.13 to 16 is basically an answer of a question asked by Arjun in the 3rd and the 4th chapter. Who is the doer? Is it the Paramatma? Is it the Atma? Or is it Maya? Is it the material nature?
It's on the table.
Yeah. Is it the individual soul? Or is it the Supreme Lord? The great eye.
This is different from this.
No, it's the same thing. I'm just writing down the question. The answers will come here. In Journey of Self-Discovery, we did this thing. What does the jiva or the individual soul do? Desire. This is the gist of 5.13 to 5.16. This side I'll write down the breakup of all shlokas. 2. Material nature or Maya has a few elements. That's time or Kal, the material world,
5.13 to 5.16.
Did I write anything else? Time, material world, material body?
3 modes.
3 modes, of course. I'm just redoing it. 3.
There's a table we've done.
Yeah, we've done this. Same thing. 5.13. No one thinks because I live in this city, I am this city. Point 2. He endeavors and offers results to Krishna.
This is not part of the table, no?
No, this is not part of the table. The table is the entire thing, 5.13 to 16.
Okay.
And then I'm making a breakup of each. The question raised in this part, that is verses 30 to 16, is who is the doer? Paramatma, Atma or Maya? Is it the Supreme Lord who is doing everything? Because we say, that not even a leaf can move without his sanction.
What result?
What result? What result does the Jiva achieve? Is the Atma the doer? He's the one getting all the reactions, good and bad. Or is Maya the doer? She's the one who?
Making us do things.
Yeah, apparently. So 5.13, no one thinks because I live in this city, I am the city. Point 2, Jiva must endeavor and give results to Krishna. 5.14, what result does the Jiva achieve in such consciousness? When he gives results to Krishna, what does he achieve? He is aloof from activities of the body, so he is aloof from the reactions as well. And to present this point, to emphasize that point, Krishna is saying na or no 3 times in the entire shloka. We'll go through it, then we'll see. We start 5.13. सर्वकर्माणि मनसा सन्न्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन् Utsa Prabhu, you can start.
When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done.
Right. In the purport, there's a small shloka, I'll be reading that. Navadvare pure dehi hamso lelayate bahi vashi sarvasya lokasya sthavarasya charasya cha. It means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of the living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. Right? And then what are the 9 gates? The body consists of 9 gates. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus and the genitals. The living entity in his conditioned stage identifies himself with the body. But when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. This is in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. When the soul realizes that I am a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, when the Atma realizes that I am the part and parcel of the Paramatma in my very heart, he becomes just as free. Correct? Right, so here we have to understand 2 things. Just because one lives in a house, does he become the house?
No.
He is aloof. Yeah? So no one thinks because I live in this city, I am the city. The entity and the city are 2 different things. So Jiva must endeavor and give results to Krishna. He resides happily. Here the first part of the shloka says when the embodied living being. Embodied means a person like a bird in a cage. A caged bird. That's how an embodied living being. Like that soul is in a cage. That soul is in a body. So the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions. Okay? Means he's endeavoring, and what does he do? All the fruits are given to Krishna. That is emphasized between 5.11 to 5.12. When he explains Nishkam Yoga, he already explains, this is what I want you to do. Do as you're doing normal things, but the fruits are for Krishna, not for personal sense enjoyment, because that's how reactions start. He resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. So neither is the jiva cause of the work, and neither is he working. Because just by giving away, because a lot of times when we are doing something, it's always for some profit, it's for some purpose. Right? So Krishna says when the purpose is already given up, it's as good as you not working. Can we go to the next verse? Krishna makes it more clear in that. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhuhu na karma phala samyogam swabhavastu pravartate. Ruma?
The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature.
Right. Now, if the Jivatma is not the doer, if he is aloof, he is not the doer. Right? So what happens? When he gives his results to Krishna, what result does he achieve in such consciousness? 3 times Krishna is mentioning na. Can you read in what? Na karmani. Na. Second one is na. Then? Na kartrutvam. Yeah? There are 3 nas. He's saying that if that person does not work, although you might see with normal eyes that he is working, but he does not work because the fruits are already given up. He's got no karma phala. He's not going to get any material reaction because he already has no attachment to the fruits. So already the reactions are burnt. And the third one is, he's not the doer. Who's the doer? The 3 modes of material nature. So reactions, so a simple thing, one thing that Krishna mentions here, what is the connection between 13 to 14? Krishna says one who is aloof, he is not the doer anymore. Right? So who continues doing the modes of material nature? Very well. So the connection is that if he is in such consciousness, what does he achieve? He achieves freedom from reaction. Correct? As soon as one is aloof from activities of body, one is free from reactions as well. To emphasize the same point, Krishna is mentioning na 3 times. Just one small thing. Na is repeated 3 times to emphasize that the conditioned soul is not creating activities, nor induces people to act. Can you control anyone else anyway?
Who creates karma?
Who creates karma? When you are attached to the body and to the fruits, karma is created. When you understand that this is a city where I am living in, and I am a separate entity attached to Krishna, that is when karmas end. Is that okay?
No, but I am still willing the action. But I am the doer.
You are not, that will come in 5.15, where Krishna emphasizes that the soul is not completely aloof, because his past desires have already set course a particular, now this material body that I have right now is because of some karma phala. If Krishna destroys, or the process of my attachment to Krishna destroys everything, so even this material body, which is right now an instrument for me to serve Krishna, will also be destroyed. So my entire purification will not happen. So some karma phala is remaining. Rupa Goswami writes it in Nectar of Devotion. He writes this particular thing is that when Krishna, even if that karma is destroyed, the past reactions, not all of them, because his material body is proof that I have some last few remaining. Because this is still an instrument for me to serve Krishna till I have completely attained purification. Yeah? So na is repeated 3 times to emphasize that. So right now he is saying that nor can anyway somebody cannot determine his fruits. These 3 things if he understands, that I am not the doer, and because I am aloof from the actions of this body. I've got nothing to do with this body. This city that I am living in, I've got nothing to do with this body. Even the requirements of this body is requirements of this body, it's not my requirement. So in that sense, he is not the doer. When he sees himself aloof from this body. Right now we are thinking, I am this house, I am Indian, because I live in India. And that is so thick. This particular consciousness is so thick in me that comes out only in an India-Pakistan match. Eventually we will not really realize, but it's so much ingrained in us. It comes out only at certain, you can see that thick conditioning around us, that we think so much from the level of this body. We cannot see others, that they are also on the platform of the soul. Nor induces for people to act, nor can he determine his fruits. The 3 modes are responsible. That is the 3rd point in this. If I am not the doer, then how is work still going on? Who is doing it? The 3 modes. Now this is a little technical thing. First thing we understood Krishna saying that this Jivatma has to realize that he is aloof from this body. When he realizes that, his reactions will be finished, nullified. And to emphasize this, he is writing it 3 times, he is repeating it 3 times. Then he speaks, if he is not the doer, if he stops being the doer, his material body is still moving. How is that? Because of 3 modes. Now someone has to control the 3 modes. Who does the controlling part? That's the next verse. 5.14. Can I repeat it again? Na kartvitvam, na karvani, na karma phala. Is these 3 things clear? By the time we come to 5.16, everything will be clear. 5.15. Where is 14? We did 14. Did I answer this right? Yeah, 5.15 is what we have to do. Nadatte kasyachit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena vritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavah. Achha?
Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge.
Here Krishna gives a very important key. Here he is saying a person who realizes is not the city, is a separate living entity. His reactions will be free. His actions are still going on. His material body is still working on the basis of 3 modes. Now the 3 modes of material nature, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Krishna says that these entire Vedas are about how a person in particular mode should work. These 3 modes are particularly under the control of Krishna. How do we know this? Krishna mentions in 7th chapter, 14th verse, Daivi Yesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. He says this Daivi Yesha, this divine energy of mind consisting of the 3 modes of material nature. Maya is all about the 3 modes. So here the material nature that I have written is nothing but the 3 modes. Tamogun, Rajogun, Sattvagun. These 3 modes are controlling each and every person. Right? Who controls the 3 modes? The Supreme Lord. So is the Supreme Lord the doer? So he is here saying here, nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities, because it's very normal. If Krishna is controlling the 3 modes, so he is the one who is making me do good or bad. So rather than me suffering the good and bad reactions of my life, he should be suffering it. He is the controller of 3 modes. So what is Krishna saying here? Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, then who is doing it? If we are supposed to be away from the city of 9 gates, the 3 modes are in charge. The 3 modes are under the Supreme Lord. Here the Supreme Lord is saying, I'm not taking the responsibility of your good and bad deeds. You are only responsible. Why? That's in the second part. Agyan. Agyan is ignorance. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. You remember when we were doing 3 types of bodies in the journey of self-discovery? We did the gross body. The gross body is made up of earth, water, fire, air and ether. The subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence and false ego. And the spiritual body or the Atma is soul. That is 3 elements in it. Sat, Chit, Anand. Is eternal, full of knowledge and blissful. So if the soul is full of knowledge, how does he come under the influence of ignorance? Mind?
So it doesn't have a mind. And in the spiritual world, does it have a mind?
After repeated births, what happens? Because the soul is so tiny. The soul is very tiny, doesn't have much power of its own, much control of its own. So the ignorance covers the real knowledge of the soul. So ignorance is very powerful. We did this in end of 3rd chapter, this lust or this ignorance. We did this thing, and then Krishna says how transcendental knowledge is so important. Transcendental knowledge is the original knowledge of the spirit soul. Correct? So here, can we read little bit from the purport? The Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty and renunciation. Okay. Is that okay? The Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord. Now here, na nadate kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam Vibhu. Vibhu refers to the Supreme Lord, who is unlimited in all these 6 opulences. He is always satisfied in himself, undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. Okay, by anyone's sinful or pious activities, he is undisturbed. He is always satisfied in himself. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity. But the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life. And thereby his chain of action and reaction begins. A living entity is by superior nature full of knowledge. This is the original constitutional position. He is full of knowledge. In the spiritual world, when he desires to be independent of the Lord or enjoy separately from the Lord, when he is come down to the material world, what is required for him to enjoy? Desire. The desire brought him down. Now here, if he has to enjoy, he has to forget that knowledge of my connection with the Lord.
So, but he forgot first, then only he came down.
Yeah, that desire brought him down, because it's not possible to, be the Supreme Lord there. Here you can have some amount of control, leadership. That's what we think. It's actually arranged by the Lord himself. So what happens slowly when he acts on the platform of my enjoyment, this ignorance goes on covering him, because he's very tiny. The Jivatma is extremely tiny. Even the size wise. Remember we said it's 1/10,000 the tip of the hair. The original knowledge gets covered with ignorance. And that is what is creating these actions and reactions. So simply in 5.13 Krishna said that simply a small thing one has to realize, that I am not this body or designations of this body. This ignorance is what is covering the soul. But eventually it started because of the first, as you said, desire of independently lording it over the material nature, trying to be the controller. So if I have to be the controller, I have to forget this knowledge that I am the supreme eternal servant of the eternal Lord. I have to forget that. So when this material body is given to us, it's like a package deal. We think, okay, now this is my body, this is my hand, this is my eyes, and I have to enjoy and gratify these senses. Then I'll be happy. After millions of lifetimes, the soul is trying to do that. trying to enjoy through these senses. Eventually what happens? He gets covered with ignorance. He does get frustrated. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is described that every jiva at one point of time will get frustrated with this material world and seek for that eternal relationship again. And when he does that, what does the Paramatma do? Immediately makes even that facility. So everything starts with a desire. What is the material nature simply doing? Yes, it's acting on the pretext of the Lord. Without all these things, we'll not be able to enjoy at all. As usually in advanced Bhagavad Gita courses, we give this simple example. If I have to go from here to another destination, say Palkeshwar or further, Nepinsi Road, what do I need? I need a cab. I get into the cab. The cab uses the roads created by the government. When I get off, who has to pay? Does the roads pay up or does the cab wala pay up? I can tell the cab fellow, that even you got the wonderful breeze and even you're enjoying the cushions in the cab. I mean, you took a good ride. He's doing it all day long. But he doesn't pay up because it was my desire to go to that destination. So the material nature, for example, the cab, the infrastructure and all these things for me to reach that particular destination, was it created by me? It was created by the government who wants us to avail of these facilities. So the Supreme Lord has created this material nature, which provides us the time on the material world, the time that this desire of mine will be fulfilled. The infrastructure with what this material, the circumstances. Suppose if I want to be an extremely rich person and I have the piety for it. So to arrange for me to reach that particular rich woman's womb, that whole, it's not done according to I'm very tiny, I can't do that entire controlling or organizing part. That is done by the Lord through the material nature. So time and material world represents the infrastructure, the circumstances, the situations in which my desire will be fulfilled. The material body is also important, right? And the three modes with which my desire will be fulfilled. What does the Lord do in the end? Simply judge. Today we have judges who are bribed and everything, but the Lord cannot be bribed. He will always do correct justice. We have the example of the hotel. When we sit in a hotel, we order something. What does the waiter do? He takes the order, gives it to the chef. He comes out, delivers it to me. I eat it, I enjoy whatever I ordered, and then I have to pay to the cashier. Pay for the food, pay for what I have enjoyed. Right? What does the Supreme Lord say? That I am not assuming anyone's sinful or pious activities. Although the three modes are under my control, initially it begins with the embodied soul's desires, that desires which are coming because he is covered by ignorance. So eventually who is the doer? There are three doers. The Lord is arranging everything, material nature is acting according to the Lord's sanction, and the desires of the Supreme Lord. So what is, if the Paramatma is judging, what the material nature does is execution. Soul is not completely aloof from his activities because he has to take care of the reactions then. Right? Because of his desires, once the sanction of the Lord is there, the material nature will execute. And then the reactions come to, it's a science. It's circular. It starts with desire, execution is done, the sanction is done, the judgment is done, the reactions come back to the jiva. Often in Journey of Self-Discovery, we give the example of Dhritarashtra. What did he do? He had a question for Krishna. He asked the Supreme Lord that why, in just a span of 18 days, all my 100 children are dead. What kind of karma, what kind of, this is, he thought it's a lot of bias. All the 5 Pandavas are alive, but all my children are dead. Why such a gruesome fate? Why such gruesome destiny? So what did Krishna tell him? That 50 lifetimes back he was born as a hunter. And he killed 100 children of a bird. And he blinded the bird.
That's why he was born.
So he was thinking, why, what was I doing for 50 lifetimes? It could have been, part by part given in installments. What was I doing for 50 lifetimes? He said, you were collecting the piety to get 100 children. Then he was born blind, he got 100 children. So eventually, if you see, how does this execution work? It's pretty flawless. The reactions are given very accurately. The desire or whatever fate that he, it just happened and then it came back to him eventually. Can we do 5 points?
Vyasa's reaction to the 100 children that died, wouldn't that create karma again?
What did he do?
He gave up everything.
He
That
gave
was
up, but
it.
he
After
was-
Vidura gave
he
him
was-
the-
Yeah, I mean, what he did with Draupadi and allowed that thing to happen in the courtroom and all that, it would create karma again.
All that aggravated his, actually it simply aggravated his past, sinful deeds.
And that lies simple deeds also.
But eventually, when he went to the forest and all those austerities and everything, that's what happens, when you come, it gets cleansed. When you simply come in knowledge and when you're repentant, although some person might think, it's not the same as what he did to Draupadi. But losing his 100 children and all his children were married, all the widows, all of them were right in front. All his grandchildren were orphans. So all that what happens, when you already have a pending bad reaction and you're simply going on sinfully, you're simply triggering it for coming faster. Am I making it more clear or is it more confusing? It just triggers your sinful activities. When you go on piling up, it simply triggers. Like if a pot, it doesn't have so much of, things to hold. Bolte paap ka ghada. What do you call it? You're simply adding on to it. What happens? It will break even faster. So if that particular thing was supposed to come by, even more years later, he simply triggered it by allowing Draupadi to be insulted in that court. What did he do? He triggered the war.
Yeah.
That's what he do. So it was his own misdoing. If he wouldn't have done that, he wouldn't have allowed that, then at least, the Pandavas wouldn't think so much of fighting so soon.
Killing all the sons.
Killing all the sons. That's what Bhim did. He took a vow in that assembly that I will kill all your 100 children. Otherwise he wouldn't have taken the vow. So he simply triggered his own sinful activities further. 5.16. 5.15, the Lord says, I have not done it. Who's done it? The individual soul with his 5.16. Ajnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitamatmanah tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam. Varsha?
When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which any science is destroyed, and then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
Right. So here the Lord is saying, Jnanena, by knowledge, tu tad ajnanam. Ajnan could be ignorance. In the previous verse he called, Prabhupada translates it as ignorance. Here he is calling it nescience, or it's another word for ignorance. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So what is the cure for this ignorance which is causing my repeated births and deaths and reactions for me to come? The transcendental knowledge. So just as he gives an analogy, he's saying just as the sun lights up everything, the darkness of ignorance in my heart will be driven away by the light of knowledge. the purport, those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam Jnana Plavena Jnanagnihi Sarva Karmani, and Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham. Knowledge is always highly esteemed. And what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna. As is said in the 7th chapter, 19th verse, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. It continues, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. He said that person is so rare who understands that. He said Bahunam Janmanam. He said after millions of births, I told you after millions of births a person does get frustrated after a particular point of time. And then he realizes that Vasudev Sarvamiti, Krishna is everything. That son of Vasudev, that Vasudev Sarvamiti is everything. Everything belongs to him. He is the controller of everything. After passing through many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself God, he actually falls into the last snare of nations. There are many ways Maya can bewilder us. There are things like materialistic things, riches, fame, the nations of power. These things money, these things can bring a lot of ignorance in our lives, a lot of bewilderment in our life. We get bewildered by these things. A lot of times they say that a person is too much rich, too materialistically thinking. He cannot be inclined toward Krishna consciousness. It's very difficult for him to get out of that circle and practice the simplicity of Krishna consciousness. Right? What is the last trap of Maya? All these things are there. What is the last trap? What is the last thing that the Maya tries to trap us? Think himself to be God. That is the ultimate trap of Maya, because to get out of that trap is extremely difficult. If you think you are God, would you ever like to serve God? Even apparently a lot of times when we go tough times, that time we think of God. But if you think you are God, what will happen? Can't do anything. So here, if a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nations? If I am God, and if something can control me, then am I superior or is that thing superior? If something can control me, that thing which is controlling has to be more superior. But Krishna is saying that Maya is my energy. Energy is always inferior to the energetic. Right? So with this we can understand what is our position. Our position is always inferior than Krishna's superior position. If a living entity is God, then how can he be bewildered by nations? Does God become bewildered by nations? If so, then nations or Satan is greater than God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Krishna, here Prabhupada is saying that you seek out a bona fide spiritual master, because when in ignorance it's very difficult to approach this knowledge also. Then who can give you this enlightenment? In the end of 4th chapter, Krishna speaks about it. That directly you can break this ignorance, directly you can get this transcendental knowledge by approaching a spiritual master. Although Krishna doesn't say it, Krishna is saying only about the knowledge. But Prabhupada is giving a key in his purport, saying that you have to approach a guru who can bring this sun in our lives. Right? So this is the last part in this. Can we quickly summarize? 5.13, Krishna says, I'll just read it. When the living embodied living being controls his nature, mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. That is the material body. What are the 9 gates? 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, anus and genitals. Anything else? 9? Okay. Yeah. Neither working nor causing work to be done. After he has such consciousness, what happens to it? What happens to that jiva? The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, number 1, does not create activities. Number 2, nor does he induce other people to act. Number 3, he does not create the fruits of action. All this is enacted simply by the modes of material nature. Who's controlling the modes of material nature? The Supreme Lord. So the next question will be, is Supreme Lord creating my good and bad deeds? The Lord says, nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings are doing it. How? Because they bewilder, because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. This has happened over millions of lifetimes. And then Krishna says, how to give up that ignorance? However, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed. Then his knowledge reveals everything. The analogy is of the sun. Just as the sun lights up everything during daytime, the night runs away when the sun arrives. So with that analogy, Prabhupada uses in the purport that happens when a guru enters, bona fide guru, a bona fide representative of Krishna enters our life, and the knowledge is immediately transferred. Right? So now we have two options. We have only one option. I have to go on. We have 20 minutes more. 17 to 28. Can we read it through? Any questions so far? 3 doers is clear. The first trigger point is Atma. And then he sanctions. Maya simply is executing. Who gets the reactions? Atma. Why? Because he started it. Because of ignorance. How to get over through ignorance? Approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give you knowledge of the Paramatma. Is that okay? This is a summary of 5.13 to 16. Now we start 5.17 to 28. Now getting the connection of each flow is important. So then it becomes more clear.
What was the 9 gates?
The 9 gates, this body,
But how do we confine 9 gates?
the 9 gates, the city of 9 gates.
Yeah.
Krishna gives an analogy that this body is like a city. Like city has entry and exit points. There are ports, there are airports. There are exit points are very few. Like just like the Daisar Cheknaka is one, and the Thana points there's another. So these are the probable exit points that you can probably leave the gate, or you can get any food supply or anything. These are the gates. So even this body is compared to a city, and there are 9 gates in this body. The 9 holes of the body: 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, the anus, genitals, 1 mouth. Total in 9. They become, so it's a city of 9 gates.
Okay, so
We have to realize that we are aloof from the city. Like you in this room, you can walk out of the room. Right now I am thinking this. Because I live in this city, I am this city. Is it possible? Mumbai is a very huge place. I am not this city. I am not this room. I am aloof from this room. So Krishna wants us to realize that. Am I a part of this room?
No.
Because if I was a part, I could have walked out. I cannot walk out. Like this pillar is very important in this room. If I break this pillar, what happens? It will come on us. That is a part. I am not a part of this room. I can walk out. That's why Krishna is saying that you've got nothing to do with this body. With this material body, it's simply an instrument for you right now to serve the Lord. But we are aloof. What's the proof? Death. We leave it behind and we go. Right? 5.17 to 28. We read all the shlokas and come back. 5.17, please repeat. Tad buddhayas tad atmanas tannishthas tad parayanah gacchantya punaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha.
When one's intelligence, mind, faith and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation.
Next, विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पंडिताः समदर्शिनः.
The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast.
5.19 इहैव ते जितः सर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्माद् भ्रमणि ते स्थिताः. Deepika.
Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman.
5.20 न प्रहिष्ये प्रियं प्राप्य नो द्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियम् स्थिर बुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः. सुनीता माधुरी.
A person who neither rejoices about achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the signs of God, is already situated in transit.
Right. बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मनि यत् सुखम् स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा सुखम् अक्षयमश्नुते. Shalini.
Such a liberated person is not attached to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme.
5.22 ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः. It's a problem. Read again.
An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them.
5.23 शक्नोति हैव यः शोधुम् शक्नोति हैव यः शोधुम् प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगम् सयुक्तः स सुखी नरः. Roma.
Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world.
यो अन्तः सुख अन्तरारामस् सुखो अन्तरारामस् तथान्तर्ज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणम् ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति.
One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains discipline.
Right. 5.25 लभन्ते ब्रह्म निर्वाणम्
लभते ब्रह्म निर्वाणम्
ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः
विषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः
छिन्नद्वैधायतात्मानः
छिन्नद्वैधायतात्मानः
सर्वभूतहिते रताः
सर्वभूतहिते रताः.
Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme.
26th. कामक्रोध विमुक्तानाम्
कामक्रोध विमुक्तानाम्
batteries down. यतीनां यतचेतसाम्
यतीनां यतचेतसाम्
अभीतो ब्रह्म निर्वाणम्
अभितो ब्रह्म
निर्वाणम् वर्तते विदितात्मनाम्
वर्तते विदितात्मनाम्.
Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured for liberation in the Supreme in the very near future.
Right. 27 and 28 together. स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्भायाम्
स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्भायाम्
चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः
चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः
प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा
प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा
नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ
नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ
यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिर्
यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिर्
मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः
मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः
विगदेच्छा भयक्रोधो
विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधो
यः सदा मुक्त एव सः
यः सदा मुक्त एव सः.
Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, sense and intelligence, the transcendentalists, aiming at liberation, become free from desire, fear and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated.
We'll read the last one also. 5.29. It's another section. It's just one verse. भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसाम्
भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसाम्
सर्वलोकमहेश्वरम्
सर्वलोकमहेश्वरम्
सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां
सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां
ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति.
ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमिच्छति.
So we start the section equal vision. What is the meaning of equal vision? Sees everything equally? Sees the things as they are. For him everyone is equal. No one is an enemy, no one is a friend. Everyone is a part of the Supreme Lord. Tadbudhayastadaatmanas तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिम् ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः. Translation, all of us together. When one's intelligence, mind, faith and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So this carries forward from the last shloka, last class. Like he says that knowledge lightens up everything. All ignorance will be gone. So what happens when ignorance is gone? One's intelligence, mind, faith and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme. That means when your faith is clear, you know what to put faith on now. When you put faith on something fallible, what happens? When you put faith on something which is going to, I feel shaken because sometimes we have faith in this material body, that this material body is going to give me pleasure. Then what happens when we go old? Just like our body is shaking, even our faith is shaking, right? So I'll put this up.
Yeah, please. I didn't say it thinking that everyone will say every time she sees.
And intelligence and mind. These two things are purified. Faith is purified, you know what to put faith on, and refuge means you take shelter of the Supreme Person. Then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings. That means the anarthas. What are the 6 anarthas that we have? Do you remember? I pagal. Yeah, I'm pagal. What is that? This is
Pride, anger, greed, envy and lust.
5.16, our conclusion was knowledge. Knowledge, when knowledge comes out, what happens? This whole birth and death cycle ends. Because the real knowledge of the soul is enlightened. So what is the conclusion? 5.16 was knowledge is good. Result of knowledge is what all is purified? Intelligence, mind. Person knows what to put faith on, and refuge is on the supreme. Shelter or refuge is of the Supreme Lord. This is the first result. Second result is cleansed of all anarthas or misgivings. Artha is meaning. Anartha is meaningless things. So 6. I stands for illusion. P stands for pride. A stands for anger. G stands for greed. E stands for envy. L is lust. Illusion, pride, anger, greed, envy, lust. These 6 things you become cleansed of. And then through complete knowledge and thus proceed straight on path of liberation. A person becomes qualified for the path of liberation. Next shloka. (18) Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. All of us will read translation together. Start. The humble sage is by virtue of true knowledge see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog and a dog eater. Yeah? So Prabhupada writes in the first line, a Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. So he's saying when all of this is purified, your intelligence, your mind, you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You must have faith only on Him. You should take shelter only of Him. His anarthas are cleared. He becomes qualified for the path of liberation. What is the next thing which happens? He gets an equal vision. Does he see any enemy? Does he see a friend? He sees everyone equally. No one close, no one far. I remember when Premji Prabhu was doing this, this is given in Nectar of Devotion, also described in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 3 types of devotees. Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari and Uttam Adhikari. A Kanishta Adhikari realizes only the Supreme Lord. He doesn't have any or anything to do on any relationship wise. He's a little kacha. He doesn't have the understanding that I must be equal to all. For him, only the Supreme Lord and his connection with the Supreme Lord is the only thing that he understands. He cannot see other things in connection with the Supreme Lord, or it's difficult for him to see. Right? For in this category, there are 2 types of spiritualists: Sergias or extremists. Sentimentalists or extremists. Sentimentalists, only the Lord. When there is some problem in their behavior, they are not able to mend it. Or maturity, spiritual maturity is not there in them. Right? They leave everything, husband, children, or wife sometimes. That spiritual maturity of seeing them in connection with the Supreme Lord is not there. Yeah, you'll see that even in lines, they not follow any rules or regulations. For them, it's the Supreme Lord and me. There are no rules and regulations. Okay? That is sentiments without philosophy. The another extreme is fanatism. If you don't follow Islam, that's fanatism. You cannot realize the Lord in some other form, another faith, in another form. You cannot recognize the Lord. For you, it's only this, a very narrow-minded mentality. That is a part of Kanishta Adhikari. Who's a Madhyam Adhikari? He's good with philosophy. He can convince others also. And also, sometimes if the other party is too strong, he'll keep quiet, but his faith is not shaken. He believes, okay, whatever you say, but the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Lord for me. His faith is never shaken. He has a strong faith. A Kanishta Adhikari can easily be swayed by someone who argues very strongly, either in a Mayavad direction, saying that you are God, or in the direction of material propaganda. Because his faith is still very small, he doesn't have the support of devotees, he can be swayed. Madhyam Adhikari is very strong in his faith, not very sure of convincing others about it. May be good, may not be good, philosophy-wise. But his faith is very strong. And what is he? He can see the Lord in relationships. He is very good with devotees of the Lord. With innocent people, he preaches to them. Those who are atheists, what does he do? He hates them. He keeps them at bay, or he simply ignores them. So you see, he does make certain discrimination in part of relationships. Who's a Uttam Adhikari? It's this. A humble sage, by virtue of knowledge, sees no difference. For him, a Brahmana, an outcast, or a dog, or a dog eater. A dog eater is an absolute outcast. Even there are levels of non-vegetarians, in that even those who eat pigs and those who eat dogs are like absolute outcasts, even amongst the non-vegetarians. So he sees all those people equal vision. There is no difference for him. Such a person is an Uttam Adhikari. What can that person do? He can convince others of, he is so strong with the philosophy that he can convince others of Krishna consciousness. He himself is very strong. And for him there are no enemies, there are no friends. Everyone is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and he tries to serve them. So these three stages, you can be at any stage. You can be between